I was never an important man. I was never the kind of person people stopped for, or the one they tipped their hats to when he entered a room. I was just there, and that was enough for everyone, except me. 70 years passed, all at the same pace. I wake up early, not because I have something to do, but because when a body gets used to being tired, it forgets how to sleep in. I make my coffee with my own hands, sit by the window, and look out at the street as if I am counting the steps of a life that slipped away, one by one. My house was too quiet. Not the kind of quiet that feels peaceful, but the kind that feels empty. My wife moved around silently. My children passed by me without noticing whether I was well or not. We didn't fight, but there was no warmth either. We lived together, nothing more. I worked my whole life, small jobs, hard jobs, the kind that never make it into resumes and are never told as stories. I carried heavy things, fixed broken things, and swallowed words I should not have swallowed. I came home late and told myself that this exhaustion had meaning, even if no one else understood it. At family gatherings, I sat in the corner. I listened more than I spoke. I smiled more than I felt. When they talked about the future, they didn't look at me. When they talked about the past, they skipped over me. I was the man no one expected anything from. No one feared his opinion. No one waited for him to change anything. My friends slowly disappeared. Some died, some changed. Some realized my friendship didn't add much to their lives. 2 or 3 remained. Rare phone calls, memories too old to use. I was not poor, but I was always on the edge of safety, the edge of dignity, the edge of worry. I counted expenses, postponed desires, and convinced myself that contentment was a virtue, not a necessity. Then that day came, a short phone call, a formal voice, cold, like someone reading tomorrow's weather. He said my full name, then the name of a man I hadn't heard in over 40 years, a distant relative. We were children once, then we separated and each of us disappeared into his own path. He said the man had passed away, and that I was the only heir. I laughed at first, a light, automatic laugh, like a reaction to a joke that isn't funny. I said there must be a mistake. My name is common, life is long, and luck had never knocked on my door before. So why now? The man paused for a moment, then he said the number. $1 million. I don't remember exactly what happened after that. I don't know if I sat down or stood up. All I remember is that my heart didn't jump with joy. It shrank. A strange feeling, fear mixed with confusion. Like someone suddenly dropped something precious into your arms without asking if you were ready to carry it. I hung up the phone and sat there for a long time without moving. I looked around at the same house, the same walls, the same furniture. Nothing had changed, but inside I knew everything was about to. I told my wife. She slowly raised her head and looked at me. She didn't say anything at first. It wasn't surprise or happiness. It was a calculating look, as if her mind had already started counting steps that hadn't been spoken yet. My children laughed, a short laugh, then silence. Then the questions began, questions that sounded innocent but felt heavy. What will you do with the money? Where will you keep it? Have you thought about the future? Will you write a will? I was the one who should have been asking questions, but they asked first. During the first week, I tried to stay the same. I bought the same bread, sat on the same chair, drank the same coffee. I wanted to believe the money wouldn't change me, and that my life would continue as it always had. But people don't allow that. Neighbors who barely returned my greeting started smiling more. The same smile, just longer and heavier. An old friend I hadn't seen in years suddenly called and said he missed me, said we should meet soon. Another person told me he had always seen something special in me. I smiled, but inside I laughed bitterly. Where was this something special before the million? At home, the atmosphere changed. Conversations were no longer natural. Every word felt measured. Every decision was discussed. Every silence had a meaning. For the first time, I felt like I wasn't a father anymore. I was a project. something to be thought about, planned around, and waited on. I started waking up at night, sitting alone in the dark, thinking, did the money reveal them, or did it reveal me? Had I been this invisible all along, or did the millions simply shine a light on something I had never seen? I wanted just one thing: to stay who I was, to be seen as I had always been. But money doesn't allow that. Money redefines you in other people's eyes before you even understand what has happened yourself. And in those nights, I began to feel a new weight in my chest, a weight without a name. I hadn't lost anything obvious yet, but I knew I was about to lose things that cannot be bought. And there, without realizing it, the journey began, the one I never wanted. A journey that didn't just change my life, but slowly pulled me away from myself, step by step. I no longer sleep the way I used to. Money doesn't wake you up at night, but it slowly steals your peace, quietly without a sound. I began waking before dawn, sitting in the dark, thinking about things I had never thought about before. Numbers, possibilities, faces, intentions I could no longer read. I started noticing the small details, the tone of voice when they spoke to me, the way they sat, the brief pause before every question. Everything carried an extra meaning now, as if words alone were no longer enough. My oldest son began visiting more often. He would sit beside me and talk about his projects, his ideas, things he had never mentioned before. He spoke with excitement, then looked at me at the end, waiting for an opinion or approval. He never asked for money directly. He simply placed the idea in front of me, as if the decision were mine, and as if saying no would be unreasonable. My daughter was different. She didn't talk much, but she changed. She became careful, watching, measuring her words. When I spoke, she stayed quiet. When I was silent, she looked at me for a long time, as if she were trying to understand who I was now. Her father? Or the man who inherited $1 million? My wife. She was the closest and the farthest at the same time. She didn't ask for anything directly, but she asked about everything. The accounts, the papers, the future. She said she was worried about us, and I believed her. But when fear mixes with money, it takes on a different taste. One night, we sat together. She said calmly that this money was an opportunity for all of us, to live better, to help the children, to finally rest after all these years. Her words were logical, reasonable, but I felt something pressing on my chest, as if the comfort she was talking about did not include me. I began to feel that my very presence had changed. I was no longer the man whose opinion could be overlooked. Suddenly, my opinion mattered. A lot. Not because they wanted to hear it, but because they wanted what came after it. Friends increased. Phone calls, invitations, meetings. Faces I barely knew spoke to me with unusual warmth. They laughed at my jokes, agreed with my opinions, praised my wisdom. I smiled, but inside I stepped back a little more each time. One day, my son suggested we invest part of the money. A safe project, he said. Guaranteed profits, he said. All it needed was a start. I looked at him for a long time. I saw the child he used to be, and I also saw a man waiting for something from me. I said I needed time to think. He didn't like that answer. He didn't say anything, but he pulled away. And from that day on, something between us changed. Conversations became shorter, visits less frequent, his tone colder. For the first time, I felt that my love for him was no longer enough. My daughter began to distance herself. She no longer sat with me like before. She made excuses, tiredness, work, anything. Sometimes I caught her looking at me, a quick glance, then turning her eyes away, as if she were ashamed of something, or of me. At a family gathering, I noticed I was no longer sitting in the corner. They placed a chair for me in the middle. Everyone turned toward me, asked me questions, sought my advice. I felt suffocated. The attention I had once dreamed of came too late, and it came with conditions. That night, I returned home sad. I sat alone and realized something I didn't want to admit. Money didn't bring closeness. It rearranged distances. Small disagreements began. Discussions turned into silence. Silence turned into coldness. Every time I said no, I lost a piece of something I couldn't name. Respect, love, or simply acceptance? I tried to explain. I said I didn't want to be a bank. I said I was still their father, not their project. They listened, but they didn't understand. Or maybe they understood and simply didn't accept it. One night, my wife said a simple sentence, but it broke me. You've become difficult. Difficult? Me, who spent his whole life giving in? Me, who never asked for anything? That's when I realized my image in their eyes had changed. I was no longer the simple, quiet man who could be overlooked. I had become the man who owned something and who could refuse. And that was enough to change everything. I began to lose my appetite, to lose the desire to talk, to lose the ability to laugh without thinking. Every time I saw the money, I saw their faces. And every time I saw their faces, I felt an unbearable weight. I thought I had gained something great, but I slowly began to understand the truth. Everything I gained on paper, I was losing in my soul. At that stage, I hadn't lost them completely, but the crack was clear. A crack you can't hear and can't see, but one that grows every day. And deep inside, I knew what was coming would be worse, and that the hardest part had not yet begun. The collapse did not happen all at once. There was no shouting, no doors slammed in anger. Everything ended the way the most important things often do, slowly. My son stopped coming by. At first he said he was busy. Then he barely answered at all. I later found out he started his project without me. It failed, and he never told me. He didn't ask me for anything, but I knew something between us had broken, and it would never return to what it was. My daughter pulled away even more. She no longer spoke to me the way she used to. She became formal, short, careful. Once I saw her with her friends. She didn't point me out, she didn't come over, as if my presence confused her. As if I had become a burden she didn't know how to explain. My wife stayed, but the distance between us grew wider than any absence. We talked about everyday things, the weather, the house, and we didn't talk about us. We no longer argued because we no longer tried. One day, I sat alone and looked at my bank account. The number was still there. It hadn't gone down. It hadn't changed. But for the first time, it meant nothing. The million I thought would give me security only reminded me of what I had lost. I stopped meeting people. I closed my phone more than I opened it. I no longer searched for explanations or fairness. I grew tired of asking, was I wrong? Should I have given them what they wanted, or would I have lost myself completely if I had? At night, I returned to my life before the money. The exhaustion, the worry, the simplicity. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. I was poor in my pocket, but rich in clarity. Now, everything feels blurred. I realized too late that money doesn't only change people, it tests them. And it tests us along with them. I lost my family, not because I inherited $1 million, but because we didn't know how to live after it. And I lost myself, because I expected money to make up for years I hadn't lived the way I should have. Today, I am a man who owns more than he needs and less than he deserves, and if time could return, I would choose to remain that ordinary man, the one no one paid attention to, but whose heart was full.